So for that last sound there, we used the different oscillators to create layers of sound that occurred simultaneously, which we could then kind of blend between. In this example, what I'm going to do is use the oscillators to create, some of them will be layers of the same part of the sound, but I'm going to create two kind of distinct parts of the sound which occur at different times. So we're going to have an initial transient, so the kind of striking part of the sound, and then we're going to use one or more oscillators to create the kind of secondary part of the sound that comes in after the strike. So let's start with oscillator 1 then. I'm going to stay at the same octave we're at as default, but I'm going to change the mode of oscillator 1 to FM. And if you remember, we can introduce the FM, so turn up the amount of frequency modulation going on using Control A. So what I'm going to do is use an envelope, like envelope 3 here, which is currently just set to have a decay, so a downward slope, this part of the envelope. And I'm just going to change the routing here from cutoff 1 to oscillator 1, Control A. So what we're getting now when we play a note is we're getting this control jumping right up and then sliding down. So we're getting a lot of frequency modulation at the start of a note, and then it fades away while I hold the note down. So the shorter the decay there, the briefer that FM burst is at the start of a sound. And I can play around with the other controls here to change the character. So that raises up the harmonics, if you remember. Or what I could also do is change to one of these other waveforms here. It can be a little bit difficult to get it in tune sometimes with FM, which you may or may not care about, especially if it's a brief sound. But as I play with these controls here, the envelope here isn't going to make such a difference, because Control A is always going to stay slightly up unless I bring it right down there. So yeah, even if it's slightly out of tune sounding, as long as it's returning to no frequency modulation after I hold the note down, then we'll always kind of maintain that same sense of pitch of the note that I'm playing. So we have a kind of out of tune clangy part at the start, followed by it returning to the played pitch. But I don't really want too much of that pitch coming through, because I really do just want that kind of striking sound. So I'm also going to map this envelope to the cutoff of filter 1, which I'm going to make. Let's go for a different low pass this time, like the Infecto one. And reroute this filter 1, this envelope to filter 1. So you can hear it kind of slots in at certain frequencies to being in tune again, and then when you move it either side, it goes kind of out of tune. I'll keep it there for the moment. We can always tweak it later on. But what I'll do for the second oscillator is I'm going to copy oscillator 1 onto oscillator 2. And I'm just going to change a few of the controls, like maybe the octave. So let's turn it on first. And then what I'll do to this one is I will spread it a bit wider by, well, first I'll apply a bit of unison to it. And then I'll add a bit of width. So that gives us a kind of higher frequency, slightly higher register bit of FM for the transient on oscillator 2 here, which also has more unison voices for detuning and extra width for a bit of stereo information. So then we can use the dial here to then blend as much of that in as we like. For oscillator 3, I think I might use it to add a bit of extra hit on the transient, which I'm going to achieve by, just turn these off for a minute, setting it to noise. Sorry, one thing I forgot actually on oscillator 2 here. I'm routing it to the filter, so that's fine, but I'm not mapping its FM amount here yet. So I need to use another envelope to control that. Otherwise, the FM is just going to stick at this position here. So I'm going to copy envelope 3 onto envelope 4. But I'll change these routings so that this one is routing to oscillator 2, Control A.